PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of the PR Connections podcast is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PR Connections Radio Show at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. My name is Guy Dawson, and I am your host. And I have the esteemed privilege of introducing all of you to a wonderful person who I have known for several years. She's a fantastic speaker and an author. She's a member of Toastmasters International. For those of you who follow this show or follow our network, I am a huge proponent of Toastmasters. It's a wonderful organization with some of the best people that you'll ever meet in your life. I can't think of a better way to engage in personal and professional development than joining your nearest Toastmaster club. If you want more information about Toastmasters, by the way, you can visit their website, toastmasters.org. But Gail, welcome to the PR Connection Show.
Well, thank you, Guy. It's just a privilege to be here and just so fun to be able to get together with you today.
I have already identified you as a speaker and author. Would you share with the audience what that means? I know you've written several books and that you speak regularly. Maybe you could give everyone an overview of what you do.
Well, I've been a speaker pretty much most of my life and definitely all of my professional life because I started out in education. I came from a family of educators and passed it down to me, but then that just led into getting into publishing. And as being part of a publisher, I also did presentations. So I was on the stage doing presentations about product. And then after about 30 years, I actually decided I was going to move on to my other passion. Well, the passion that's always been there, and that's writing. And that's when I started to write the books. And then that being an author led me to the stage, speaking and motivating and inspiring.
What is it about what you do, Gail, that really inspires you to keep doing it? I mean, writing a book is not the easiest thing in the world for anyone who's ever written one. They'll tell you that. Getting up in front of groups of people to speak is by far one of the greatest fears that most adults in our society have. What is it about doing these things that's inspiring to you?
Well, what inspires me is that I know that there are a lot of people out there who just at the thought of public speaking, they lose their minds. They'd rather do anything else than to get up and speak in front of an audience, whether it's for 1 minute, 5 minutes, however long it is. And so I know that, as a speaker myself, I dealt with a lot of these same feelings, and it really just takes some encouragement from other people and just gathering up that courage to just do it, to just jump out there and do it. And so I want to be a help, a resource to get people more comfortable with taking those baby steps to start speaking so they can be heard.
Before we came on the air today, Gail, we were talking a bit about our experiences being speakers, you and I, for a very long time. And the fact that from the speaking perspective, that you never, what I was telling Gail was that you never really arrive as a speaker, and that sometimes you feel like a rock star and sometimes you don't. And I think that that's one of the challenges that I see with a lot of newer speakers, Gail, is that one day they go out and they're super, super confident and they give a great speech. And then another time, maybe they're super nervous and they're more challenged by it. And that's what will discourage them from wanting to continue to speak. How do you manage the differences that we all experience as presenters or communicators or speakers?
Well, one of the things that I do constantly, and that is to remind myself that the people that I'm speaking to, they're not there to judge me. They're there to encourage me. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like, for example, last night I participated on a panel in which there were supposed to be four other people who were being interviewed at the same time, but two didn't show up. And so therefore it was just me and one other person, which meant I'd be speaking for a lot longer, in which I was not mentally prepared for the lengthy responses that it would require. But I kept telling myself that I can do this. I can do this. And I focused on the person that was interviewing me and really listened and then internalized how I'm going to respond and what they wanted to hear. So I have this constant conversation with myself, just talking myself through the situation. So
Mhm.
that's what I do on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's a point that you touched on related to speaking, Gail, about the speech being for the audience. And something I've found is that people who are not necessarily very experienced at giving presentations, that getting that concept across to them can sometimes be a big ordeal. Is that, yes, this is for your growth, your improvement, obviously. For some people like you get paid to speak. And the reason why people would pay you to speak, or the reason why people want to hear your story as a speaker, from my experience generally, is because you're writing the speech for the enjoyment of the audience. And that's where your true power as a speaker lies. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yep, that's absolutely right. Because if you get on stage or you get in front of an audience and you're only focusing on a memorized speech, you're only thinking about, this is what I have to do, this is what I have to say. And then if you forget something, then you're lost because you've lost your audience. But if you're, like you say, Guy, if you're focusing on what their needs are, then that is what's going to come out. That is what's going to resonate with your audience when you're focusing on them, not on yourself.
What is your process for developing a speech?
Well, I think about the end of the speech, meaning I keep the end in mind. And then I develop the speech in order to get there. And so I know that if I'm focusing on the audience, I start off with what are the questions that I'm going to ask the audience during my speech. And then I ask them ahead of time, of course, what do you want to hear? Why am I here? And what problem can I solve for you? So it just depends on if it's an informational speech where they want to hear certain items, then I focus on those items. And then I ask them what it is that they want to know further about that. And then after that, then I just start taking notes. And then I start expanding those notes. And then I break down the speech into sections. And, typically you don't want to have any more than 7 sections if it's a longer speech. And if it's a shorter speech, no more than 3. So then when you get ready to deliver that speech, then it's manageable. It doesn't seem like, oh, how am I ever going to get through this? Because, I got to have to do this part and then this part. So the structure is what's important to me.
And understanding, again, you touched on that, Gail, understanding the needs of the audience and making sure that when you create a speech, that you craft it with an understanding of the people who you're going to be delivering it to, so that they'll have the appreciation and you'll really be able to get your message across to them. I think that that's so important.
Yep, absolutely. So, and a lot of this being in Toastmasters, because you mentioned that earlier, the fact that, we're both part of Toastmasters International, that has really helped because as part of Toastmasters, you get to provide feedback when you're hearing speeches, and they provide feedback to me when I deliver a speech. And so that's why this process is always ongoing. And I'm always incorporating feedback, not just from Toastmasters, but other people that I practice the speeches with as well.
Yes, and you also talked about being an author and the importance of that. Speaking and oh, excuse me. Ooh, that's like a half sneeze. Excuse me. At least it wasn't a full sneeze. But they're both forms of communication, and yet there's a big difference between being an author and being a speaker in terms of the method for developing the communication. So, how about writing books? What inspires you to write a book, and tell us maybe a bit about your process when you're writing a book.
Well, the first two books that I wrote were broken down into 52 segments. And I know that seems like a lot, but when you think about journals, and when you pick up a lot of journals, they have quotes, and then you respond to those. That's how I got started in writing my first two books. Because when I was part of the corporate world, I had an email signature, and every week I would put in one of my original quotes, because I would see other people's email signature, and they would have a quote of a famous person, and that's all well and good. But I thought, why don't I just create my own quotes that reflect how I'm dealing with life? And then when people would get my emails and they would get that quote, they would say, wow, that really resonates with me, or I could relate to this. I needed to hear this. And then people said, you should compile these. And then that's how I decided I would keep all of these original quotes and turn them into a journal, which turned into a book. I would have stories that go along with why I developed these particular quotes. So that was the process of how I released. It was Weekly Windows of Wisdom. That was the first book. And then Prompts for Purpose and Perseverance. And there were 52 quotes for that one as well. And then Excerpts of Enlightenment, which also had 52 quotes. So, and then the book that I am just currently released, which is Many Winnie Pearls of Empowerment. I was inspired to write about my mother and how her life paralleled my life in its journey. So I decided to do that.
It's interesting to hear, Gail, how you talked about repurposing content and how valuable that is when you are an author. You create something for one purpose, and then later on you end up being able to use it for multiple purposes. So like you mentioned about taking quotes, and this is just so prevalent now in our digital media world that we live in, is that you create content, and then you can end up using it for social media. You can use it for blogs, articles, podcast content. That was interesting to hear how you incorporate that into your writing, is that you write something once and then you find other places to put it.
Absolutely. There's always that content out there that you could recreate in different ways, which actually reminds me of the fact that once I developed these quotes and stories, then I started to do videos, and I put those videos on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and then just kept them on my YouTube pages. So then I could utilize them in different ways. So that just expanded into the whole video content producing as well.
I have worked with a lot of authors on books through the years, Gail, through public relations and coaching and being a ghostwriter myself. And I like to say that a book is like a giant business card for a professional speaker or an author. It's a great way to really establish your brand and make you unique because you've written a book. Have you found that to be really helpful for you with the things that you do?
Absolutely. With this last book that I released, I had sent copies to members of my family because it was a family book. I mean, it talked about my mother's life and my life, but then they shared it with other people. And as a result of one of my family members sharing it, I got a speaking engagement that's coming up to speak to a conference of nurses because they saw myself as being motivational and inspirational. So there, just like you said, it was the book and its impact that led to this particular speaking engagement.
Yeah, for any entrepreneur or speaker out there or a person that runs a nonprofit organization, I just highly recommend considering writing a book about something that you know a lot about. And it's the great thing about these books, right, Gail, is that we all have stories to tell. And if you can get yourself organized enough, the content is all around you. As Gail had talked about, she just grabbed quotes that she'd created, and that was the beginning, the cornerstone of her process. So yes, I definitely would recommend doing what Gail talked about, is you just pull information that's relevant to you, that you're excited about, that it's a part of your message, and put it into a book. And it'll be a great way to build your credibility as well, Gail. I think that's what you were kind of saying a second ago, is that you were able to lead in with this credibility builder, which was your book.
That's absolutely right. And the other suggestion or the advice that I would give too, if you're considering writing a book, is to always have like your handy dandy notepad, or, on your phone, your notes, because you never know when you're going to come across a situation just in daily life that's going to strike you. And then you write it down. And then for me, those situations would inspire a quote or a saying. And usually I get that inspiration in the middle of the night, because I'm an insomniac at times. And so I just wake up, and then whatever my thoughts are, and then I revisit it in the morning. And sometimes it develops into something, sometimes it doesn't, but always be observing. And then that's really going to inspire the content for your books.
So one of my purposes for having Gail on today was to listen to her fascinating story about her life as a speaker and an author. But the other purpose for having her on today was to introduce her brand new podcast that we are thrilled to be having here at PR Connections Radio. Gail, will you speak to the audience? What is the title? Number one, what is the title of your new podcast?
Well, the title of this podcast is Breaking the Silence. Finding the courage to be heard. And what inspired me to start this podcast actually was being in Toastmasters, because when I'm in Toastmasters, we always get guests that come on, and we ask them, well, why did you join today? And they said, because I want to become a more confident speaker, or I have a team that I need to lead, or just for whatever reason, I'm thinking there's a need out there to talk about this and to really offer the tools to help anyone who wants to become a more confident speaker. And then two, a lot of our Toastmaster guests come in and maybe their first language is not English, and they still have the courage to speak up. And so that is really what inspired me to say breaking the silence, because people will sit and remain silent because they're just like this, and then helping to find that courage. So that's the reason why I started it, and, developed the kinds of things that people really want to hear if they want to break the silence.
Right. You're going to sort of be a mentor for people out there who want to grow in the area of becoming better communicators. And in Toastmasters, of course, we have the leadership element. But one of the things I've discovered through all aspects in business and elsewhere, Gail, is people who are strong communicators just naturally become strong leaders. Because people listen to what they have to say. They take the time to create messages. Their thought process is what stimulates and motivates people to want to follow them. And I just think it's great that you are helping people to build their self-confidence and grow to become better communicators and leaders through mentoring them as a podcast host.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have very high hopes, very high expectations for how this podcast is going to play out, because it's only going to be one of, I think there's like 800 million podcasts out there. So I'm hoping that this will be a topic that really stands out and resonates with people who are interested, not just in public speaking, like you say, just being good communicators.
Yes, that's a really underestimated or underrated aspect of communication, Gail. Yes, public speaking, obviously, there's a tremendous power and value in being a good public speaker and being able to speak to an audience. But that's a rare thing. When we get up in front of a crowd and deliver a speech, that is the rarest communication that most of us probably participate in. The more common communication that we participate in is the everyday conversations that we have with our friends, family, work colleagues, and you can grow in those areas too, which helps your relationships. That's been my experience, Gail, as I've grown to become a better listener. Being a listener is, yes, that's such an underrated, and maybe you'd like to speak to that, Gail. I think that's such an underrated aspect of communication, it is also probably the most important aspect of communication is listening.
You're absolutely right, Guy, because if you are sitting there thinking about what you're going to say next, instead of listening to the person that's actually talking, then whatever it is that you're going to say will probably fall flat because you're just coming out of left field. So listening is the key to being able to communicate fully. And also when you're listening, you're actually showing compassion. And the people that you're talking to, whether you're a leader of a team or if you're part of a team, they will appreciate the fact that you are compassionate about their feelings, their thoughts, their opinions, and are going to be more receptive to what it is that you are offering when you speak. So yeah, listening is 100% the key.
When you're a good listener, you really stand out like a sore thumb in our world because there's this tendency that we as people have, as Gail had mentioned, is that we always want to get our 2 cents in, or we are always thinking about how we're going to answer what it is that you have to say. But I mean, some of the people that I've admired the most throughout my life, Gail, looking back, were the people who intently listened to what I had to say. And because I know they intently listened to what I had to say, you know that by the way that they respond when they actually answer you. You can tell that they've really listened. They didn't just kind of gloss over listening to what you had to say. They truly were intently listening. And so they're able to give you feedback or speak with you in a way that creates a better connection.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And, those connections are so important because that helps to, and I'm speaking in terms of leaders and teams, when you form that connection, that helps you to relate better and to be more productive. Because when you don't listen, defenses go up. And then if the defenses are up, then you're not going to be productive. So this is so important, especially in the working world. And it also applies to your personal relationships. I mean, how many times are you sitting around at the dinner table with your family and it's all quiet and people have their phones out and so forth because nobody's really paying attention or listening? That family just starts to, pull apart. So, just listening in all of your relationships are really going to keep those relationships strong.
What can a person who tunes into your podcast expect to experience?
Well, it depends on what their level of confidence is as far as being a speaker. I've already started talking to individuals who want to be a part of it as a guest and just the different levels of confidence they have. Some want to come on to talk about their insecurities as far as speaking. And then I have others that they are very experienced speakers and they want to be able to share how their journey for speaking, their growth trajectory has been, so we can give those people that tune in an opportunity to think about, well, this is where I am, this is where I could be. So they don't feel alone in their fear of speaking. So yeah, they'll find a whole wide range of guests on the show and many opportunities for them to reflect on their own communication.
Gail, this is a topic that is of such deep interest to me that I could talk to you for hours and hours on the nuances of speaking and the importance. But I really appreciated having the chance to speak to you a little bit today about speaking in general and your upcoming podcast. And we're really looking forward to having a show, I feel, that has so much so much of a constructive foundation for people wherever you are in life. Yes, maybe you don't want to stand in front of crowds of hundreds of people like Gail possibly has, I'm sure has, or I have over the course of my life. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't get something from a podcast like hers just to live a better life, communicate better with your children or your husband or your boss. And so, yes, I just think that I'm just so looking forward to breaking the silence here at prconnectionsradio.com. And is there anything else that you'd like the audience out there to know about you or your upcoming podcast?
No, just stay tuned and follow me on whatever social media, so then you can find out when it's actually going to launch. And the last thing is that the reason why I really am pursuing this podcast is because it's a passion of mine. So I'm advising all of you out there that are listening is to find your passion and follow it, whether it's speaking or writing or running, riding a bike, but find the courage to follow your passion.
Absolutely. Yes. And once you follow your passion, as they say, Gail, the things that you do, they're not always easy, but you'll do them anyway because you're so passionate. That keeps you going when the ups and downs of things that you're pursuing. But when you're extremely passionate about something, you'll maintain your commitment to it. I totally understand what you're saying there. Yes, when you're all in on your passion, you won't stop doing it because it's the most natural thing in the world for you to do.
That's absolutely right.
All right.
I'm passionate about this, and thank you so much for having me.
I'm passionate about launching brand new podcasters like you, Gail, on our network. And again, yes, please tune in to Breaking the Silence with Gail Larson here at prconnectionsradio.com. We'll be having announcements on when the stream actually comes on the air. And you said, is there a website or anything that they can go to, Gail, to learn more about you?
My website is larsonslegacybank.com. And everything will be there when you go to that website, everything about the books and soon about the podcast, and anything you want to know about me is at that website.
Please stop by Gail's website. And again, stay tuned to prconnectionsradio.com for her upcoming podcast. And did you know, by the way, of course, you're all going to watch this on a video stream on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Instagram, many social media sites. But we always want to remind you of our audio streaming presence, and that you can listen to the podcasts on this network on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio. We have a total of about 20 audio streaming platforms. We know some people like to watch podcasts and others like to listen. And so we meet you where you are. If you're a listener, go to our streaming sites. And if you want to watch, you can watch on all these social media platforms. But the hub of our whole company is our website, prconnectionsradio.com. When you go to that website, you can watch archives of all the shows on our network. We have about 17 different podcasts on our network for your enjoyment. And you can go over there and binge watch shows like Breaking the Silence as Gail starts getting more of her podcasts up on the network if you would like. So again, stay tuned for more podcasts coming to PR Connections. And I hope you enjoy your day and take care of yourselves, and see you on the next show.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.